Roxana, you can start from your introduction, please. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, my name's Roxana, and if you look at my last name, Radulescu, that's a Romanian name. So that kind of tells you where I'm from. And I'm currently in Toronto, Canada. Moved here back in 2017. My professional background is learning and development. I used to work with international law firms for about 15 years. Headed the learning and development department for about 8 years. So a lot of soft skills, as we call them, which I think are super essential skills right now. Soft skills development, leadership development, and I've been working since 2017, actually, as a consultant. That's where I founded my my own consulting business, which is called All Personal, because I do believe it's all personal and nothing is just business. It's how we manage ourselves and how we manage our relationships with others. So that is, and I, ever since I've done a lot of workshops, team workshops, especially when it comes to effective team communication, engagement, high performance, working with leaders and especially the mid to senior managers, not just top level executives, because I think that's where a lot of the communication breakdown can happen. And so that's my focus. A lot of, and I do love to work with teams and leaders together. And that's why I've got also my latest certification in team coaching as well. That's one solution that I see moving forward. So we can talk about it later as well. That's it in a nutshell.
Amazing. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. Let me share. I think so. Yeah. Okay. So the first question we have. So let's go to the Q&A right now. And the first question we have is that. Basically, there has been a paradigm shift in for the last couple of years due to its number of variables like COVID, etc., remote working. So, from your leadership perspective, what do you think this paradigm shift looks like? If you can just give us some feedback from your perspective to the audience.
Well, I think we're all clear that we live in a constant change.
Yeah.
So the shift that I've noticed, and which I'm sure that everybody here has noticed, is our adaptability and our power to adapt to whatever comes our way. And with the crisis, what needed to happen is, okay, we needed to work with what we had and what was thrown at us. And then that ability to differentiate between what we were able to do in a crisis and how we are now planning for what needs to happen to make the change work long term. Because that is a struggle that I've witnessed with some of the leaders and the teams that I've been working with. How do we make it work now? What needs to happen now? And that is more focused on what people can do, who can take the lead and when. So I've seen a shift towards a more distributed kind of leadership rather than just hierarchical. So that is what I've seen as a change, and being able to spot the talents that our people have, and that kind of, and tapping into the personal leadership. So who can do what and when based on where we're heading.
Right. And when you say the distributed leadership, what does that exactly mean? Is it like something, the perspective of it, or is it something like different expectations, maybe from a leadership side, or expectations from the technical way of managing the resources? So what will be your definition of distributed leadership?
So it's the more network kind of leadership. And one example that I can give here is, okay, you do have the pilot, and you do need a pilot to be able to fly a plane, right? But you do need that team of mechanical experts, technical experts to make sure that the plane is in good shape. You do need a co-pilot. You do need that the crew that's going to help. It's not just down to one person to do everything. And I think this has been a struggle before, where the leaders felt kind of isolated at the top and overwhelmed with all of the responsibilities. And what we've seen ever since the pandemic happened, where we actually had to adapt to almost becoming virtual overnight, because that was what we needed to do, and where people started to take accountability for what they could do, for what solutions they could come up with.
Right.
So, and that hasn't changed. So trying to go back to the days where it would all depend on one leader to decide and to come up with a plan and make sure that it's executed well, that's not gonna resonate with people anymore, because people have had a feeling of how it is to be involved in that planning, in that strategy, in taking over. Okay, this is what I can do.
Okay. Good, thanks. Okay, so we had a good discussion on this paradigm shifts. Let's do the next question. So the next question we have is that, what do you think are some mega trends or like trends or factors that are like leaders are facing in specifically North America or maybe Europe, if you have like a couple of thoughts on that?
Well, this has been happening for a while now. What I see as a change is what I was mentioning at the beginning, that focus on where do we need to look for leaders right now. So it's not just the focus on the top leadership anymore. It's also the mid-management, which is crucial right now.
Okay.
Because we talk about the fact that, people don't leave a job, they leave their manager.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to, and I know that we're probably going to touch on retention as well. So that has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
So if we're promoting people based on their technical skills and their level of experience, so how many years experience you have in your role, where is a more technical role, but now you have to manage a team of people, and we don't prepare them to give them that ability to be able to manage the team, to get those people skills in place, those management skills in place, leadership, that is going to break things right there in the middle. And it's going to be pretty hard to develop the next generation of leaders. So that's one thing. And I see a lot of organizations who do that, who started to look at their mid-managers and develop them, and then look at who else do we think we're going to promote and put them through some kind of leadership and team management development program, so that by the time that we promote them, they're actually ready to lead a team of people effectively.
I totally agree. And I will just try to ask one more thing and clarify one thing, is that you said that there should be a development program to enhance leadership. But sometimes there are two aspects. One is like, one, you are born as a leader, right? And second is like you improve as a leader. So do you have witnessed that part as well, and how easy is like to transfer or enforce the leadership skills? For example, a person at a technical level who has been absolutely phenomenal doing delivering like X million of dollars of project, but unfortunately, from a vision perspective, we don't have that so-called the leader aspect of that. So in that scenario, what will be the right approach?
Okay, so the expectations need to be clear, and we need to, and you know what, working with lawyers for that many years, you kind of learn that you need to define things before you start talking about them. So you need to know what leadership looks like in that organization. So first of all, it's going to be a cultural thing. What do we appreciate in our leaders? What skills do they need to have?
Okay.
Because that's going to go a long way, because skills are all about, I look at skills like body muscles.
I see.
The more we cannot have them we cannot be fit, right? If you think about it, we can't expect that I'm going to be fit because I go to the gym once a year and then that's it. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
So I better know, okay, what are the muscles that I need to be working on? How often and how regularly am I going to work on that so that I can develop them and so that they're strong and they serve me right when I need them to. It's the same thing with leadership. Like I might have a talent for leading people. Let's say I'm a naturally good communicator, but if I don't practice that, and then communication is pretty big. It means speaking skills, it means listening skills, nonverbal skills. So a lot of that. So which are the skills that are strong, my strong skills muscles, and where are my so-called dormant skills muscles, right?
Perfect.
The ones that I find that are hard for me to use, I'm uncomfortable using them, but I have to use them. So you need to be very clear on what are the leadership skills that we want to see in our leaders and where are they strong? What do they need to develop? And then work on that and have that expectation. Look, if you're going to be a leader, we're going to measure you on these scales, on how much money you bring and how well you communicate with your people and how you are able to have a team that works well together and that performs together. It's not just about you, it's about the team. And that's what's going to be the measure.
Very nicely summarized. And I do appreciate that you need to come up with more kind of a linkage between your qualitative expectations with the quantitative things, what you were talking about. I thought I was very muscular, but I need to enhance on my muscular skills as well now. Point well taken. Next, move to the next question. So the third one is that, so how effectively are the new breeds of the leaders for the next generation? What should be the best practices? So what we are talking about is the new breed, emerging people who are coming to be leaders. What will be the best practices or the points they should consider to become an effective leader or a CXO in coming years?
Well, it might, I mean, I know it sounds simple, and it's something that's pretty hard to do. It's listen and know your people. Know what we're all about. What I see is a lot of conversation around how we are different and how we look at things differently, how we communicate differently. What energizes us is going to be different things. And it's all about understanding more about ourselves first. So a lot of it has to do with emotional intelligence, where we talk about self-awareness and self-management. And so that we can then manage others and create effective relationships with others as well. So a lot has to do with getting to know your people and not isolating yourself. And what I see is look at it from a generational perspective as well. And what is going to be important for people born in different generations, because that is what they will likely want to contribute more of. So for example, for millennials, they already, who are people who are in their late 30s, early 40s right now. So for them, it was super important to that positive reinforcement, for example. What are the things that I'm good at? What am I doing well? And coming up with ways, and that goes a long way for motivation, for example, for them. They also brought that conversation of work-life balance in the boardroom, which wasn't there before. I'm a Generation X, for example, like late 40s into early 50s, which is, I learned that, okay, when it comes to feedback, it's a lot of critical stuff. It's what doesn't work and that we need to correct. For millennials, it's what works. What are you strong at? What do you love doing? And appreciate that. And it's all about being able to bring your whole self at work. That was a conversation that wasn't there before.
Absolutely.
And being able to create that space where bringing the Generation Z, for example, which are the people who are in their early 20s right now, in their 20s, early 20s, even teens, some of them. So as they're entering the workforce, these are going to be the people who are going to be interested. And if any of you have interviewed any Gen Zs before, you know that you get questions like, oh, what's the purpose of your organization? How are you going to contribute to the community well-being? Like they're all about a higher purpose. And what do you want to do in your organization? What are you there for? What do you want to contribute? What's your big vision? So knowing what motivates them, what's important for them, that's going to go a long way in knowing what to listen for and picking up those cues from them and understanding how you can blend that all in and let them make that contribution.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was really great. But just a small question. There's a gap between the old age, like me, like myself, I'm an old age guy. Like Dean is my mentor, so he's much more elder as well.
Are you saying I'm really old? Careful.
But
experienced.
Yeah, super age. So there's a thought process change, right? So people coming from a millennial, right? They have a different way of doing things, and they do believe they are expert in that perspective, right? And most of the times, back of the mind, they are saying, "Oh, leader doesn't know anything," right? So there seems some kind of a misalignment. So just on like 1 minute, like, can you just say that how to, from a leadership perspective, how to fill that gap? Is just like developing a trust, or more communication, or more value propositions, that what values we have, and what exactly is like cross collaboration? Are these some couple of things, or there's something else?
So here's an exercise that I use with some of the teams, and which you might find useful, because you talked about misalignment, and I think that's a keyword here.
Yeah.
So what you can do is have a conversation and really let people know, hey, this is an exercise that we're all going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes like this. You talk about your values, right? So, and there are a couple of questions that you can ask and answer at the same time. So the first one will be, what is it that is important to me and that I'm bringing to the team? Okay. And then you think about it, and everybody shares that, right? Mm-hmm. What am I bringing? And then what am I receiving from the team that is helpful and valuable for me?
I see.
What does that look like? What does the team do for me that is helpful and that I appreciate? Mm-hmm. And then what more would I want to contribute in a team, in my team right now, and I don't feel like I really have the space to do? And what more would I need from the team? Okay. What do I need the team to give me? What kind of support? What kind of solutions? What kind of environment would I want? You can, and that can be totally up to you. Right. And then you share that and see what everybody shares and where you can align. And that will need to be absolutely aligned with the team's values, with the team's mission, with your purpose, with where you're going. And how can we use what everybody shared so that we can move into that direction in a better way? Maybe we decide we're not going to fly. We decide we might want to drive.
Okay, sounds good. So just a time check. We're already like 25 minutes into it. So yeah, I have to be fast. Sorry, we have a limited time for everyone. So let's go to the next one. So the question 4 is like, one of the basic challenges is like how you are going to retain the employees, and there might be some other. So from your perspective, what do you see in a very short term? What kind of different HR challenges you are seeing, and what the leadership is doing for retaining the resources? What I believe is that they are very much flexible, whether you want to do work hybridly or remotely, increasing the perks, benefits, etc. But most of the time, there is another aspect of that. People don't want to work, right? So they are getting some grants, maybe from post-COVID, from the government. So they are just better off taking $2,000 from the government and sitting at the home or doing something. So how do you believe that organizations can actually retain some key of the resources?
So that goes back to I think what we were saying before. So first of all, listening to your people, aligning those expectations, letting them know what they're going to be measured against, and where you're going and how clear you are on that mission and that purpose. And then, working with those middle managers and have a clear career path. Because what I see, and to be honest, when I moved from my corporate days in law firms to working with organizations in professional services, but also some non-government organizations or tech. And what struck me was that the career path wasn't as clear as I was used to having a career path. So, because for a lawyer, for example, it's very clear, right? You start from a trainee and you know what the path is for you to become a partner. And you know that there are stages and there are these roles that you have to fill, and that's it. And this is how you're going to be measured, and this is how you're able to grow into a partner role. For other organizations, it's not that clear, and you don't know what your career path might be. So for HR, that's a challenge, because it comes back to how can we promote people if we don't have a clear career path? And if we don't have it, how do we ensure that we measure performance, and how effectively do we actually do that? Do we tell people that we measure them on one thing, but then we actually promote them or reward them for a completely different thing? So these need to be aligned from that HR perspective. But HR needs to function as a partner to the business, because otherwise it's not going to work. I need to know from my HR perspective where the business needs to go, how much does it need to grow, where do we want to be in 3 years, so that we know, okay, how many people do we need to bring? How many people can we promote? What are we going to promote them based on? Like, what's the measure there? So those are pretty concrete things, I think, practical things that we can look at.
Okay, so we have to
apology, guys. I've got to disappear now.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for being
very valuable.
I really
catch up again.
Thanks.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
So Roxana, the next one is that from hybrid model, do you think that people are adopting to the hybrid model, or is it something like still not being taken care of?
Well, I see that, not all leadership wants to have a hybrid model. I think there are some leaders who feel more comfortable with having people in the office.
No, I see.
So that's still, that's still something you see happening. And it goes back to our ability to be more flexible. So to understand that people are going to be productive in different ways, because we have different working styles and different working preferences. And one thing is letting go of the kind of control that we think working in an office gave us. Because just because people are there, sitting in their chair behind their desk, doesn't mean that they're actually doing meaningful, productive work. So going back to building great relationships with your team, with your people, so that you can build trust, so that you can build psychological safety in your team. Okay. Because that's how people end up being productive and happy at work.
Okay, the next one is that so probably that's when this is some, I think, very, very critical question. And one of the basic questions I wanted to ask you is that for the millennials, the people who have started, for like us, like 20 years, we have been exposed to corporate world. We know how to manage the conflicts, negotiations, collaborations, work on team dynamics, how effectively we can deliver while working in collaborations or as teams. But the new people who are joining like remotely or in a hybrid model are very much less exposed to the corporate culture. So there seems some major gap how they can evolve themselves to be have in the right path to become a leader in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So do you think, do you have witnessed this thing, and what will be your recommendations? Just the last questions.
So that's been something that was happening even before the pandemic. There were so many companies with so many teams that were distributed worldwide. that would work together in a virtual environment. And they would be geographically located with some other people, with some other teams in one office or another. But that didn't, prevent them from working well together with other people in their team who were in the virtual team. So, and I had the same kind of team when I was leading the learning and development team. There would be people in my team who were not in the same office with me. They were in different countries, in different time zones. So again, it comes down to how do we work best together? What do we need? And it starts with onboarding. And letting people introduce people, for example, introduce people to those people that are crucial in the organization for them to meet. If I know that for somebody in my team, they need to meet the marketing manager, the IT manager, the finance manager, whoever it is, I need to be able to facilitate that meeting and that introduction so that they get to talk to that person, right? So that starts with onboarding, and then moving on to our team and how effectively we work together. How do we work? Can we, for example, I have teams who sometimes they just work together on Zoom. It's not a meeting. It's that they just share the virtual space to work together as if they were in an office together. They all work on what they need to work. But just because they are there in the same virtual space, that facilitates asking a question. And I can ask you, Arif, where was that? When are we having that meeting with the client tomorrow? Or where did we save that document? Or can you have a look? Can we have a quick look at this document and this report and see what we need to do, what you would add? So it minimizes that perceived distance that happens when, I know that you're at home, I know that you're doing your work, but I don't see you. So that comes with a specific distance. So the more we can facilitate those working environments, even if they're virtual, that is going to help so much.
Great, amazing. Okay, so that's the end of the questions. Due to the time limitations, I did have more, and it better. But now virtually, I will just ask you to just virtually come and have a seat on our front seat. So on this couch. So I assume you're sitting on our couch, and I'm just going to ask you some weird kind of questions and just a very instant response. So, what is your best? What's your favorite color, by the way?
My favorite color? It's turquoise.
Turquoise, okay. So have you wear any turquoise suit or dress in your meetings?
Sometimes I do, yes.
Okay.
Especially when I need to align that with my brand. I find that it makes me feel better.
Perfect. Any bad experience during a meeting when you started but the projector was not working, or there was some other disaster, or maybe you entered into a room and there was no one actually. So any kind of that experience?
Well, I entered the virtual room and there was no one.
Oh, that's so bad.
So what I did is I ended up recording what I had to say and just shared that.
I see.
But yeah, when you facilitate and you do workshops, you end up in all sorts of difficult situations.
Difficult scenarios, yeah,
people who don't participate, or perhaps people who hijack the conversation. So you kind of need to bring everything back to a balance.
Okay, and last question is that any inspiring thing you got it from, maybe a person or maybe any instinct or something that was much more inspirational that you can recall?
So one thing that there are many things, but what I notice, and especially in the team leaders that I work with, is that they do want to understand more about their people and about themselves. So one thing that somebody said to me is, I need to have conversations right now with my team that I didn't need to have before. And I want to learn how to do that. And because we weren't talking about, you know, the flexibility. Do you need to work from home? How many hours do you need to work from home? Do you feel comfortable with the way that we do things here? So a lot of those conversations that we perceive are more personal, but a lot of the personal space matters when it comes to how we are productive, how productive we are, right?
Okay. So really bounded with the time, Ashya, I just saw a lot of questions. I will just bring one Ashya's question. She's saying that what strategies would you suggest for the leaders to kind of have an accountability for the team? So how, from accountability perspective, she's asking from a leadership side. So just give us the answer, and then I think I can pass these questions to you, and I can just forward it to the respective person.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So accountability, that will come as with motivation. It's gonna be, first of all, intrinsic. So it's gonna be internal. So again, have conversations with your team where you're not discussing just about the to-do, just about the tasks, but allocate a few minutes in your team meetings where you discuss about what's our perception about our team. What do we think we can contribute with? How do you see that other people on the team contribute to what you have to do? What is helping you? What is not helping you? And share that, because the more we can share what our perspective on what we are good at and what the other members of the team are good at and what we would like to have changed